All right, we are live.
Bow, bow, bow! Starting
That's what I'm waiting for.
loud.
That's
Back.
what
We
I'm
are
waiting for.
back, guys. This is our Revengeance episode.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to the Bias Cut, the #1 podcast in the world. You
Numero
can
uno.
check the charts. We are ranking #1 right now in the world in all categories, but especially in fashion categories, because this is the fashion podcast hosted by two losers. My name's Christian. That guy's name is Killian.
That's
And
me.
we're back. We
We're back.
missed last Thursday, and I hope you guys were like so sad.
And we missed you.
Yes.
We miss all of you dearly. We know all of you by name. We know your style. We lurk your Instagram fit pics.
And your LinkedIn.
Yeah, we know where you work. We know your mother's maiden name.
We know your social security number. Even if you're not from America, we know it. You have whatever a European security number.
I thought we said no European listeners and viewers.
Yeah,
I thought that was a rule. Are there people breaking the rules?
I don't know. I do see that the Nectarine Man, and feel free to put this on the screen. He was mentioning all the colors that we're wearing. And that's because, and I didn't talk to Killian about this, it's 420, guys. We're both so high right now. I'm like, whoa. I don't know what's going on.
That wacky tobacco just hits different on 420. You know what I mean?
Yes. And I go like, do you ever think about fashion, bro? If we had more production, I would have like graphics come on the screen.
I feel like your shirt is the visual representation of a Northern Lights strain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a real perp daddy.
I'm wearing the sour diesel.
Yeah, sour.
I'm going back to high school right now. All I know, the only strain names I know are from 2008. Okay.
Sure.
I have a job. Okay, I'm not going to admit anything on here. You're not going to catch me, narc.
Yeah, I will. Okay. I just wanted to point out some of our funny comments we're already getting.
Okay.
Ming, I don't know how you pronounce that first part. Bro, all this tie-dye got me thinking it's 2018. Brutalized. I think
this shirt is like a 2018 season shirt. I think that might be spot on.
And tie-dye was like, blowing up back then. And I just wanted to put something fun on. I just wanted to wear something vibrant and bright. And I guess if you are listening to this like a podcast, first off, it's a live stream every Thursday on YouTube and probably in the future on HBO. So you got to check it out. You got to check it out live so you can see the two of us in our funny banter and our funny outfits.
Exactly.
And
you should also come on and watch the live stream because they have the opportunity to interact, to chat, and sometimes do more than chat.
Yeah. Yes. Wait, what do you mean?
I mean, what I'm thinking is we open the floodgates.
That's right. It's Revengeance time. We're about to open the floodgates. We're about to invite you weirdos who were watching this, to get on this pod, to get on the stream.
I just dropped a link in the chat. It's open. You hop on. It's like a Zoom call. If any of you feel the need, you will show up on stream right this very second.
In perpetuity. And I know Big K, Special K, you said you had at least one person lined up.
There's definitely one guy who at least was very much looking forward to coming on. I don't know if he's in here right now. I don't know the screen name that he goes by, but hey, if you're here, hop right on in. And we're going to be watching here. If anybody hops on, you're welcome. Whoa, there he is. Blake, welcome.
Hold on a second. Testing. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Woo!
Hey,
welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. What what do you want to chat about?
Well, honestly, I know the spiciest topic around here is Amiri, and I feel like Amiri has been one of the hottest topics on YouTube, and one of the easiest brands to slam.
That's fair.
And I am an interesting person in the sense that I am an unironic Amiri enjoyer. I have a whole Amiri collection with me and a small little PowerPoint lined up with some reasons that I love the brand that I feel like no one has expressed. So if I could screen share, that would be so sick.
You should be able to.
I hope this doesn't. If this becomes uncopacetic, we'll
You're out.
Oh, cut. Yeah, no, it's all PG. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And by the way, I know I see AO Meng in here, and you're on deck, my friend. All right, Blake, I see you. We got your screen share. All right. And it is on.
All right, so this is my assessment of the fashion community at the moment, and this is.
And please wait. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but keep in mind that this will eventually be an audio podcast. So if you don't mind, as you're going through, kind of describe what's going on as well. That'd be fantastic.
Oh, definitely. So here I have some screenshots from basically the entire fashion community, consistently rating Amiri super low, and in a lot of ways, I agree in so many ways, but I just wanted to put this here to show the length that Amiri has been shown on YouTube. And in the next slide, I'll show a little bit of history, which is one of the things that actually got me into fashion in the first place, which is celebrity styling. And I wasn't necessarily into a piece that was supposed to be worn every day. I wasn't necessarily into a piece that was for everyone. I was sort of into something that was highly collectible, that was made for someone who was going to be in front of a camera or someone that had a platform. And to me, Micah Mary did that very well. And so I made this introductory slide to show this weird history with Micah Mary and how he's been able to sort of infiltrate multiple genres of music. I mean, from K-pop to rock and roll to hip hop, and frankly, a lot of artists that I listened to growing up and a lot of artists that I respect.
I think there's one of those screenshots is Guns N' Roses.
Oh yeah, of course. And I show this shot just because of those jeans right in the middle, which are an old model, PPX1, which they don't make anymore. And I'll get to that.
It's got an answer for everything.
I have done so much research. Sorry to cut you off.
I'm on the edge of my seat. No.
Take it away.
Please keep going.
And before I go further, I really want to talk about the year 2019, because I feel like 2019 for Amiri was the most pivotal year in the brand's history. And in my opinion, I don't like to make arguments, okay? I'm not here to argue, but I will make a thesis. That's what I'll call it.
Okay.
And my sort of thesis is Amiri post 2019 had many different goals as a brand, and those goals sort of strayed away from Amiri pre 2019. And I have many examples lined up here that I'm ready to talk about. And first and foremost, I want to actually agree with something that you guys said on your podcast, which is very intuitive, which is you're like, every now and then he comes out with a piece that's just a banger. And I'm like, that's so true, because what he does is for such unique people in that celebrity styling background that it's hard to relate to on a lot of levels. But I think, for example, like one banger he did in recent years was this jacket with this hair on the back. But it also highlights one of Amiri's downfalls post 2019, which is kind of like once you've seen it once, you've seen it every single time. And like every time you've seen this jacket on the street, it's like, okay, I've seen that already. And I
do specifically remember though seeing that jacket and thinking like, damn, that one's a banger though. Like, man, this collection isn't great, but yo, that's a banger.
I also gonna agree with you when you went through on your tier list and you like highlighted SS 23, spring summer 23. I agree. Like Spring Summer 23 was a D for me too. And I'll get into sort of why that was. But I think it strayed so far from the core of Amiri that it's just sort of confusing where we're at now.
Okay.
And I think a lot of the OGs will remember things like before they even started putting button flies on the jeans, which was in 2019, they would put these really high quality zippers on there. And that was attractive to a lot of people like me. After 2019, they started doing like cheap logos, like the military logo that I thought was just kind of lazy and just like copy paste. And not that this MA thing was lazy, but it was sort of like the basis of a monogram that they were going to put everywhere. And I was just kind of like, I don't know if that really is the original vibe.
It's definitely chasing the sort of monogram trend that was at its peak in that probably 2019, honestly, was the peak.
Right. And another thing I want to point out is a lot of the basketball references. One thing that's interesting is the first basketball references came out right after the Lakers had just won everything. So it was extremely well timed. But the thing is, before 2019, there were no basketball references anywhere in Amiri, and it was sort of like coming out of nowhere. And it was cool, but it was like sort of adapting to that new audience of like professional athlete. Again, like the celebrity styling mind of Mike, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, post 2019, you see a lot of the logo mania, which I wanted to show in this, which I mean was a trend for a while, but I mean it's just different than what I'm going to show in the next slide, which is what I believe to be the core and the real artistry. Again, t-shirts like this, I feel we're just a little lazy and cluttered, and I just don't know.
We're a little far out for the listeners. What is on that t-shirt?
Oh, on this t-shirt, this was the Wes Lang collaboration. And this particular t-shirt, sorry if I'm doing a poor job of describing for the listeners. Okay. On this particular t-shirt, this is the vampire with the lightning and the skeleton and what looks like a flag. And it's honestly so cluttered. It's
a lot.
Like, it's a lot, right? It's a lot. Yeah. And it's just not clean. It's not on point as I would hope. And then the last thing I want to talk about, just to get these out of the way in post 2019, is the little badge that they put on the butt of the jeans. Oh man, for some of the OGs, that's like embarrassing. Like, oh man, as someone who's been in it since before 2019, has been doing so much research, the newer models, just to me with the badge, I know you can take it off, but it's just like, oh man, like.
So let me ask, because this is essentially meaningless to me, new to me. You know, why is the badge an affront?
I think that the badge, it's a mark. Okay, so there are different tags that came along with Amiri throughout the years, and it started in 2016 and 2017 with some of the most OG pairs that are of the highest quality, and those are extremely expensive. But after 2019, he started putting the little badge on the jeans, and 2019 is when the quality just went down.
Okay.
So
it's kind of like seeing the little E on a pair of Levi's. It's just like, oh, this is like made in Mexico, and it's just worse than the big E.
I guess I hesitate to say the word worse, though. And the reason I say that is because the prices of the jeans have come down over the years. So despite them getting lower quality and putting the stuff like the badge on it, it has allowed a new market of Amiri fans to come and enjoy the brand. So that's something I support. I like when new people join the brand. I'm not like a gatekeeper.
That's cool. That's cool.
I think so we've seen post 2019. So now I assume we're going to open the curtain and we're going to see good Amiri.
For sure.
Let's see it.
I want to show you guys and I want to show YouTube and also the viewers some of the things that I love about Amiri and some of the things that are highly collectible and that are from before 2019.
Okay.
So first, I want to start off with this quote that Amiri said in 2016, where he was describing the brand, and he said it was a half cowboy, half vampire. Such a weird combo, but he tries to stick within that core. And he says he thinks the collections will always have that California base. I know, right? Nowadays, it's like, always. But for me, growing up in California, my whole life, a lot of these designs pre-2019 made a lot of sense to me.
Sure.
So I'll start off with these two designs in the top left. And for the viewers, these are two different vintage T-shirts that he sourced in Los Angeles and applied Swarovski crystals and the custom vampire print with Kiefer Sutherland's face from the movie The Lost Boys, which I liked.
Good reference. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this, I put these two pictures on here to show that he was really out there sourcing different vintage tees to print on, and every piece was sort of one of a kind in the early days. And this shows an Amiri before the days of the commercial monogram. You know, this was when Mike was really in there applying his own thought to things. And I think that shows also in these 4 images at the bottom, which are from the Autumn Winter 2018 Children of the Night collection. And I think a lot of people would say that this is sort of a continuation of Edis Lemon or Saint Laurent Paris, but I would sort of say, why are you complaining? Like, that stuff was amazing. You know, like, and I also have to outline a bit of an anecdote from when I was getting into fashion. I tried the jeans from Saint Laurent Paris when I was getting into it, and everyone's a little different. And I tried a 31, I tried a 32, I tried a 33. None of them really quite worked for me. And even though I loved the collections and I loved Surf Sound, I just wanted more. And Amiri is where I found more. So going on to the next image here, you can see some recurring savoir-faire with the brand, like the snakes.
Ooh la la.
And that's how I would describe it as well.
Right. Like it's interesting, and it appears throughout the seasons, and it's different than what we saw post 2019 with this sort of new take. So I guess to sum up my thesis in one or two sentences, I would say that Amiri post 2019 has been growing at a rate where Mike can't pay attention to putting this kind of effort into the clothes anymore. And I think he has his own family, and I think he has a lot of things that he is working on in his own life. One reason why I wanted to come on the podcast was to announce the news that I heard recently that Micah Mary is actually stepping down from his role as CEO of the company, but is keeping his role as creative director.
Oh, that's fun.
And that's interesting. That's interesting because it's like he wants to get away from the business and step back towards the pre-2019 when he was actually looking at look at these colors. I mean, the green snakeskin leather moto jacket here. I mean, that's fantastic.
I will say, I notice the thing that I see the most out of him these days is either like hustle porn, like quotes, or him like in Saudi Arabia opening the new Amiri flagship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are vibes.
They are vibes.
It's a vibe. Yeah.
I guess I'm with you on that. I agree that he has some hot Instagram takes for sure. And sometimes he should just like kind of, cool it for the sake of all of us. But also I have to say, if I'm going to defend that, here's what I'll say. Growing up with a Persian father myself, I know that they're very interested in and passionate in the world affairs, like when he posts things about Iran and things like that. And I think that his clothes really vibe with that audience, and I think Persian people, especially on the West Coast, are into it, and that's something that I've seen myself. And I think that where you live does sort of matter with clothes sometimes. And
it does.
That's a very fair point, honestly.
And I think here it's like more typical, I guess you could say, of men to walk around in skinny jeans. And wearing skinny jeans was a long journey for me. Like I can't say that I just started doing this. It took a while, and I'm 5'9". I wanted to look a little bit taller, and the Amiri fit me well, and I looked taller. And I think people should look at themselves honestly and dress for what makes them feel confident.
So Christian, I imagine, right, this was his thesis presentation, for his PhD. We're on the judging panel. Do we have anything to say here?
Can I first start off by saying, Blake, thank you so much for coming today, for putting together this PowerPoint presentation. Guys, this isn't even Google Slides. It's Microsoft PowerPoint. And I just want to say, like, you know, for all the hot takes that Killian and I have to come up with professionally to keep, you know, the wheels turning, we truly appreciate you sharing your passion, your connection, and your admiration for Micah Mary. And I agree with you 100%. I've only been to LA once, but I could tell fashion is different there. And I love this. I love the presentation. We got a zoom in on a Riri zip. And
I think I'm with you in that I can't find anything to argue with necessarily, because at the end of the day, it all comes back to taste, and neither of us are in the business of like dissing anyone's taste. You know what I mean? And we've also admitted that there are bangers in there, and if you find more bangers in there than we do, like hell yeah, you know what I mean?
I mean, if I'm going to be honest for only 1 second of this podcast,
hit it,
Blake. I appreciate that you have something that you love, and then you should always love it. And if it resonates with you, you should follow that. And that's what I really believe. But as a performer, I need to let me make a metaphor. Let's say you love Christopher Nolan. You love his movies. And like, you know, some people are like, oh, his movies are stupid. I'm a real fancy pants, and I only like really fancy movies. But like a lot of people are like, it's pretty cool. I like these movies. What if, hypothetically, Christopher Nolan's like, I'm going to take time to make a new movie, but then some other dude comes and just copies Christopher Nolan, and he's making a lot of movies that are just like him, but a little less hitting. And those movies actually perform way better than Christopher Nolan's, and they become like the top movies. And that metaphor is Eddie Salmon and Micah Mary. Eddie Salmon is Christopher Nolan. Micah Mary is the imaginary director. Blake, how would you respond to that criticism if I said I look at this and I see Saint Laurent Paris, and my qualification is that designers bring something more fresh to the table? What would you say?
I guess I would say first I have to ask, what I got into fashion more recently over the last couple of years, and it's only recently that I've had money to spend on this sort of thing. And as a sort of new consumer, I wasn't really around for as much of the history, I guess you could say. And it's not that I am not interested, because I've watched every Eddie Salmon show at this point. But I think that I'm always obsessed with something new. And I think that Micah Mary brought something new in a sense for me. I guess to elaborate on that more, I guess what it was the celebrity styling component of it. And one of the things you guys quoted in your episode was mixing the high with the low. Yeah. And one of the things that I really was looking for in the fashion space was something that looked super normal, but was made of the best materials.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, some of these pieces are loud, of course, but you can also find, like, I have plenty of examples here. I have the most normal mom jeans from Amiri you could find, and that's my style. I could show you some if
it's a way in. It makes it's a way in, and everybody needs a way in. Like Christian made a video recently talking about how Supreme was a way in to a ton of people. You know,
Killian, we've got somebody else on the line who wants to jump in.
Yes.
Regard to this conversation.
Please.
I also just want to take a moment to say, Blake, thank you so much. If I have to cut you off, that might happen. But I genuinely, earnestly love this. And I love
this was sick.
And
thank you so much.
And there is like, we all joke around, but like, I hope that you pursue this passion with your full heart. I hope one day Micah Mary comes and like shakes your hand, you know?
Damn right.
And I mean that. And you deserve it.
So I appreciate the time.
Yeah, of course. Who do we have?
Ao Meng.
Ao Meng.
Y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hey, what's up?
Wonderful. Oh, Blake, I didn't want him to go. I kind of wanted him to stay on and keep
Blake,
the stuff on the screen.
If you hear this, Blake, come back. We'll try and get it back.
First and foremost, thank you, Killian and Christian, for having me on the pod. Didn't think I'd be here, so I didn't make a PowerPoint presentation about the thing that I want to talk about. But I did want to kind of jump in on what Blake was saying, because the topic that I was going to discuss was the new Fear of God collection, which was presented at the Hollywood Bowl. Very Kanye style to have that level of production for a fashion show, which I wanted to get into. But one of the things that I kind of is like a topic in common is LA core and the rise of LA core, and how that sort of, it is, I think, like a distinct style. And to Blake's defense, we were talking about Hedi Slimane and his ingenuity at SLP. Is there maybe a reverse colonialism going on? Because Hedi Slimane is Mr. King Pears over here, kind of ripping off LA in a sense.
And he's white.
Well, I mean, outside of LA, also having a lot of white. I didn't describe racial bias to like the LA style because I'm just not that knowledgeable in terms of the art history, I guess, of where that comes from. But if he's of that area and he says that people have been dressing like that for a while, and this speaks to their sensibilities, obviously he brought it to an international stage for mass consumption, but that's colonialism for the bougie people to get in there and learn about like ripped jeans and the flannels and everything. So don't get it backwards. Don't say like SLP was the OG of this shit if they're so kind of mining from the same corridors of the Inland Empire or wherever.
Damn.
So that's my defense there. But what I came on here to kind of discuss was I guess another LA brand. But before that, I want to kind of bring up the fact that I'm not particularly familiar with Amiri's work or exactly how many designers kind of work in that vein. But I do feel like since Celine has grown to the way it has, and Hedi's brand has mostly stayed the same in that zone, that people are catching on, and that they realize there's an international audience for this sort of, I guess, production, which is sort of like adjacent to streetwear, but it's not really streetwear, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's usually, I think, in terms of like brand perception, a matter of distribution as to like what we, I think, kind of feel about each individual brand. I feel like that usually comes to the place where like people, like he brought up like post 2019, I feel like there is an over distribution of Amiri, and that stuff is like popping up in like the sort of like I don't know if you know of like this thing called Heat or something like that,
the mystery
subscription boxes
for like overstock, right?
Yeah, and like the fact that like Amiri's pieces like are constantly on perma sale and like send sales and stuff like that. I feel like there is a bit of over distribution going on, so that can like lead to like a negative brand.
I do want to. This is something I've actually been.
There's a lot of different elements.
There's a lot. This is something I've been thinking about quite a bit lately, because one of the brands that I look for the most is Enfant Riche de Prime, another kind of like LA brand, right, that we've talked about before. And they've been doing this thing recently where, at least to my eyes, they have been making new deals with their stockists and not allowing them to put them on sale, and maybe cutting back on some of the bigger stockists. And it's had an insane effect on the resale market. Like Grailed prices for all the stuff has shot up because these things aren't on sale at their stockists anymore for 50% off or whatever.
Yeah, and I do feel like it's not like a gatekeeping thing as much as like, I guess, trying to keep the core of what the brand does special, and not like turning it into Givenchy, which I feel like, or like Burberry, which I feel like are like the worst examples of like how brands get devalued by like just trying to make something to be in every store.
Yeah.
So outside of that, I do feel like there is like, I think, a movement of like European money kind of moving in and giving a chance to like these sort of creative directions, chief among them being the sort of ascension of like the Bali guy, or I guess more what people would say the rude guy. I'm hesitant to try to pronounce his name because I'm going to butcher it. I've never like heard it spoken out loud. It begins with like V or something like that. But like the fact that like Bali is like also going like a traditionally Swiss leather goods house is going super hard into like LA core. means that like I don't think it's like a dying trend. I feel like they have like identified that there is like a strong consumer base who is an audience for that sort of thing.
Oh, the guy.
But can I make a point? But what if they're wrong? Like I don't know. I don't want to be a jerk, but like, what if people in LA dress bad and
But it doesn't matter if it's bad. Like I'm not the customer for this at all. Like I'm the guy who like goes to like DRM and like tries to stay away from the basement. I mean Dover Street Market, DSM, and tries to stay away from the basement, right? So like I'm not that guy. But I do think that that there is this audience and that they're willing to pay a premium price point for luxurious materials and that sort of like styling that I think has proven like more than a decade in at this point to be kind of like a timeless market, right? Like there's always going to be the people who buy this sort of thing. And I think, that's something that like can speak to a certain kind of consumer. Like the Rude is like almost synonymous with LA these days. I feel like that came a bit later than Amiri. And like, I think it's got like their distribution game sort of in a similar place, but like they try to, I think, keep the like voice of the brand particularly strong. Like it doesn't kind of like devolve into be like a denim or like a small leather goods accessory brand. Like there is like, I think, a stronger voice in terms of like what Rude brings to the table in terms of like it's ready to wear. But like with the ascension of like the creative director to his work at Bally and like, of course, adding like a 0 to the end of some of these pieces that like, of course, Bally does. I think there is like, along with like how Celine is doing well and everything, like I think there is like, it's here to stay. It's not gonna rotate out like the tie-dye, unfortunately.
Wait, you know what?
Whoa!
No, I'm not jokes. I'm just making jokes. I'm just making jokes.
Okay,
tie-dye will come back and rear its head every 15 years or so. It's fine.
Doesn't matter. I spent $10 on the shirt. Can I ask really quick a few things? What should we call you, friend?
First, okay. I guess my name is Al. That's how you pronounce it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. The second thing I want to ask, just because out of curiosity, I mean, we got these two of you guys on here. You're like, these are like the minds of a mastermind. I had no idea that people who were smart wanted to listen to this. Out of curiosity, could you tell us a little bit more about like what the two of you do? You're both connoisseurs, it seems, and I'm kind of curious. Blake, are you willing to tell us what your profession is?
I work in tech. But I don't really want to say who I work for, if that's okay.
Fair.
And I actually wanted to touch on that a little bit because it's sort of, I think fashion has a little bit to do with your lifestyle as well. And in your lifestyle, I don't drink. I don't go out to the bar. I don't go to the club. When I go out, it's kind of an event, so, I'm a gamer. And I work in tech. So when I go out, it's like the celebrity styling element almost sort of plays to the fun of going outside for me, like to getting dressed.
I 100% get that. I relate to that totally.
Yeah. And before people, put me up to the Amiri cross, I guess, I also want to say that I'm a fan of a lot of other brands too. Like I've got some Rick Owens, I like Palm Angels. I've experimented in a lot of places. I feel like in the high streetwear.
Palm Angels, another very LA type of brand.
Brands are very LA vibes. And I will admit, I think that it is undeniable that this style is in demand and popular. I think it's undeniable to say that this has staying power because we're talking about like 2019. I mean, really, I feel like this vibe and aesthetic, it rings true to like 2012 for me. This has been going for a while. And I don't know what else to say. I guess you guys are right. I guess you win.
Yeah, I think maybe we're out of touch, you know what I mean? Or at least just out of the loop on a certain side of things. Because I think it's fair that I never understood the side of things like the vintage WWE t-shirts like of John Cena or whatever, and how those end up in these shops for $150. The sort of grab a pair of Levi's and patch it up, customize it, it feels like very LA things. You know what I mean?
It's the swap meet aesthetic originally, I think. And then it kind of grows.
Yeah.
And the weather's different. So go ahead.
I guess just to introduce myself, I'm a rando. I don't like work in any sort of creative thing. I do like a tech IT thing similar to Blake, which gives me the money to kind of travel around and kind of see different sort of things and shop in different Dover Street Market sales. I've shopped at sales at LA and shopped at sales in London, and was gonna buy something from Paris, but I had to go. Anyway. So like my taste kind of like in terms of the sort of things fall not really on like the LA style sort of thing, but I do feel like it's interesting in terms of like where it's developed, because for a while it was kind of synonymous with streetwear, but like streetwear is its own thing, and I think it's possible to like distinguish between the two, and how like what customers they're speaking to. But what I was going to say is something that I kind of blanked on.
That's okay.
Which question you asked Blake about like lifestyle or something like that? No, I think that there is like a lifestyle component to like the pieces and like kind of what they represent and like the kind of community that they represent. One of the things that I wanted to bring up and my reason for like hopping on is I wanted to discuss the Fear of God 8th Collection show.
Yes.
And like the sort of pieces that they were doing. So I do feel like, interestingly enough, even though like I think Fog was on the forefront of like that sort of style, like kind of exploding into the mainstream, and with the success of like Essentials, and it's a worldwide sensation. And it's almost like to the point of parody now, where it's its own thing. And
Pusha T.
Pusha T
I know him
at the show. But also hilariously, that's a weird connection where like some I think like of the leading figures in the LA style come from Virginia. First of all, like Pusha T has been working in that lane ever since he shuttered Play Clothes, his streetwear style. I think he found the LA style and has kind of worked from there because of like I think finding him through Jerry Lorenzo. And also from Virginia is Sean Witherspoon, who kind of popularized, I think, like vintage tea going hard, and that being like a whole culture in and of itself.
At the risk of completely derailing this, real quick, does anyone want to explain why I've been seeing a plethora of YouTube videos shitting on Sean Witherspoon, whatever his name is, lately? What happened to this guy?
I think he just kind of became like the face of an entire thing. And when that happens, you get haters. Like I don't think too hard about that.
I wouldn't know. I became that face of
everything.
Stupid idiots, and I get a lot of shit for that.
But what I wanted to say before I like forget my thing again, was that I think that with this new collection and like the kind of pieces that he's showing and the sheer amount of outerwear that there is, which really isn't that necessary for LA. LA doesn't get that cold. No, I think what this is that like it's kind of an embracing of I remember what reminded me of this in Blake's talk when he talked about Palm Angels, which is an Italian brand. Like it's LA's fuck, but it's like based in Italy and all that. I think there is a lot of Italian money in the brand as well, because there's this sort of like confluence of like Zegna and their collaboration that they're doing like a few years back with Fear of God. And like that didn't sort of like turn into like an ongoing like product line, collaboration or not, was with Zegna. Like they made like a lot of pieces like the following season after that collaboration that like kind of explored that. But I don't think they distributed those pieces too much or what have you. But like a lot of the newer collections, I don't think are heading in that direction. But what's interesting is that like when the Zegna collaboration popped off, I think Jerry Lorenzo really glommed onto what Zegna was doing with tailoring and like the sort of possibilities that were open with like getting access to their product ranges in terms of like sheer fabric manufacture. Zegna is like a very like vertically integrated company, and since they like manufacture and even develop a lot of their own textiles. And they helped even make some for like a lot of luxury companies in Italy. And I think like Jerry Lorenzo wants to be that kind of guy. He wants to be like getting like custom fabrics and like super luxurious shit directly from like the Zegna factories. And I think like he's evolving in that direction, which I think is like an exciting new way forward. If you look at the collection, like the crazy like heaviness of like the outerwear and the sensibilities that he's bringing to those textiles, I think is something new.
Hit it,
I
Christian.
wanted to say something.
He's eager.
Listen, the thing is that I want to admit is that sometimes our brains, we could be intellectually think that something's, I don't know, weak, but we're attracted to it anyway. And I'll admit this on pod. I'm admitting this live. I think every Fear of God collection I've liked. I'd wear any of that. That collection we just saw, that looks pretty cool to me.
So as far as the LA brands go, very unique and interesting.
Yeah, and Jerry Lorenzo has definitely evolved over time.
Oh, yeah.
There has been a huge difference. You know, I mean, when he started, people basically called him a Rick Owens knockoff. Then they called him another type of knockoff. But I can understand some of it. I can understand some criticism in looking at some of these designs or looking at some of the history. Micah Mary and Lorenzo, and saying like this is derivative, or it's like it's not really pushing any boundaries. This is all marketing, yada yada yada. I don't know if that necessarily matters. I don't know. Sometimes I think that this community, the high fashion community, gets really caught up in their own, like, I don't know, the stupidity, where they obsess over like they need to be correct or they need to be cool in some maybe East Coast way. Maybe what Kelly and I need to do, we do a podcast in LA. We move out there. We get like a beach house, whatever. We start to take in the LA vibes, 420 style. And then we start to relax. And then we start to like these clothes more because we're not so obsessed with trying to impress somebody. We just
we gotta lay back, man.
And we just gotta get laid. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's one thing I wanted to say about Jerry Lorenzo too, is his presence in leisure wear is very interesting to the average consumer, or even someone who's outside of streetwear. And for me, and in my experience, we've had a little outlet mall in my town for God knows how long, and only recently they opened a sneaker store there with the recent boom. And like, of course, they have the little clothing rack next to the sneakers, and what do they got there? The Fear of God essentials.
Yeah,
you know, so it's like for any random consumer, it's an easy entry point into luxury. It's an easy entry point into the Fear of God mainline. It's a relaxed aesthetic that I think appeals to people here.
Dude, essentials has to be one of the best like vertical integration decisions that any designer has made. Because the price point, it's so accessible. It's just that one step up from just buying Nike stuff or whatever, and it ladders right up into mainline Fear of God. You know,
maybe we should start to get more religious. Maybe we'd be better at business then.
Yeah, the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, the three. I'm into it, man.
Yeah, and I will say this, and this is the last nice thing I'll say. This years ago, like maybe a decade ago or something like that, I was doing resale stuff. One of the items that we got in was a Fear of God hoodie, and I thought it was really nice. It was the nicest quality hoodie I think I've ever handled. That's all I'll say.
Well.
That's all I'll say, guys. What do you think of my outfit?
Hit it, yeah.
Is this good? Is this fashion?
Wow.
Now that's a New York fit. If I've
Can you guys get me a job?
Yeah, we'll make some calls.
I'm selling clothes.
I think that's the best 420 fit I've seen in a while.
You should tuck the front of your shirt into your like tiny shorts, to be aggressively European. That's the thing that you can do.
There you go.
You should have
a little more exciting.
I didn't realize they were actually swim trunks. Okay.
French tuck.
Amazing. Yeah, you look like you're right off the Riviera. But a thing I was going to say is that like these diffusion brands like popping off is like like a double-edged sword, right? Because the last thing you want to do is become like Amiri. That's what I want to say. Armani, which in the mid 2000s, I feel like their brand did get devalued into the tank due to the excess number of diffusion brands and the success and presence of those diffusion brands over the main line in the cultural, milieu. And like what has kind of happened due to the success of Essentials is that like it is popping out of control. I think that it forced an evolution in Jerry Lorenzo's aesthetic for his mainline. Like he has to move to like the super premium outerwear stuff in his mainline because he's got to differentiate from like how good like Essentials is, because he didn't hold back with that line. He was like, okay, what can we do at this price point? I'm going to give them everything. I'm not going to try to like cheap them out outside of like, I guess, putting like the Essentials logo across everything. So, it's not mainline. And you can't mistake it for mainline from like a logomania sense.
Yeah.
But like outside of that, like there's not really much difference in terms of cut or even like the quality of the manufacturing. So that's admirable in one sense, in that like it kind of like I think welds people to his brand once people like can kind of see like with the distribution of the diffusion line that there is something for them there in that aesthetic. But like popping off with a diffusion line kind of like I think always puts into question like I guess like if you want to be New York and snobbish and like intellectual about it, the kind of artistic direction of the mainline. A good example from a couple of podcast episodes ago would be Heaven, which is popping off way more than Marc Jacobs these days, right?
Yeah,
and you don't want to be overshadowed by your own diffusion line, I feel.
True. And I think so. Some brands have handled it well. I mean, Miu Miu could be described as a diffusion brand, but Prada has obviously translated that to be a different aesthetic with same DNA. Who else do good diffusion lines? Dark Shadow.
That's what I was just about to say. Dark Shadow.
The way you do it is you make a diffusion line where the clothes are still $800.
Indistinguishable from mainline, right? Yeah.
It's like easy that way.
Yeah.
But Marc Jacobs, his other diffusion lines, I think really tanked his company or his logo label for a while. So I definitely agree with the sentiment. And I could definitely agree that maybe Jeremy Lorenzo, maybe like just in general, they're looking at the landscape and they're saying, well, we need to evolve and push this brand into things that you can't get from Essentials, you can't get from Yeezy Gap, you can't get from whoever else is trying to make an affordable premium hoodie or whatever.
Right.
And I've been saying this for a while. I guess it's not going to happen, but I thought tailoring was going to be the hot trend. Maybe it will eventually, but
I mean that's what like Vogue is trying to like make happen, right? Like, but the idea of like evolving to the point where you're not fighting ALD, you're fighting like what Loro Piana for customers. Like that's crazy. That's a great evolution.
Right.
Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about Quiet Luxury? I was making a video about Quiet Luxury. I edited half of it, and then I said, nah. There are too many TikToks about it right now. It's a waste of my time. But we talked about Loro Piana. We talked about Xenia. Brunello Cucinelli. We can get him in the mix. They use a lot of colors that are very reminiscent of that Fear of God stuff. But hold on. Let's get a rein on this podcast because this is an hour long. We've got our guests came on here with their galaxy brains. They both work in tech, but they could listen, I know people who are professors at Parsons. You guys should move to New York and start teaching at Parsons. That's what I'm trying to say. Killian, do you want to add on to that? What are you thinking? What are you thinking in terms of how we should continue this episode right now?
Oh boy. I'm wondering, so to me, what this feeds into very well is we were going to talk about Coachella.
Yeah.
Very LA, very celebrity style focus.
Should we keep our panelists on?
I think we should keep them on and talk about Coachella.
Okay.
Yeah. I have some stuff to say about Coachella for sure.
Okay.
So here's my thesis. Okay. And then we can pop off on this. So we've got a High Snobiety post here called The Best Celebrity Fits of Coachella 2023. And if I had to render a verdict on these fits, I would say if these are the best, I don't know what's happening with celebrity style these days. We have Luca. How do you even say this guy's name? Anybody?
Luca Sabat.
Luca
Sabat in a full Guess fit. We have let's see, Hailey Bieber, and I think this is a full Diesel outfit, but it's so average that I don't understand why it's on the best fits list.
If a PR person said that look and they're like, yes, I got Diesel on Hailey Bieber. It's like meaningless. That's nothing.
Jaden Smith literally looking like an infant that their hypebeast dad dressed to take out to LL Bean or whatever. I don't know.
Post that like Travis Scott did with the hanger coat. I don't know if you've seen that picture. He's doing the exact same pose.
Straight up.
No, okay. We got to find it.
One question I wanted to ask you guys too is how do you guys feel about, within the context of celebrity styling, what do you guys think about being over the top for the sake of being over the top? Because I feel like we live in sort of an age where people do things for likes, they do things to expand their business, they do things to expand their exposure, they do things to gain attention, and it's good for their brand. And so I was thinking that sort of plays into a lot of their fashion.
I mean, look at what I'm wearing right now.
Yeah, of course. It's not always to be liked by everyone.
This is for the likes. I think that fundamentally, my actual opinions are I am enthusiastic about the fact that fashion, especially men's fashion, has really kind of evolved over the last, like my life. I'm enthusiastic that celebrities, both men and women, have been more, there's more of a push or involvement of like clothing and having a fashion sense and defining themselves through fashion. That was not necessarily always the case, at least not as prevalent as is now. And I mean, I'm kind of supportive of people wearing outrageous, garish clothing, especially if it looks bad. I mean, I think the worst thing could be if you look back at the past decade or whatever, and you look at the 2020s and you think, wow, everybody dressed boring. There was no style. I would rather it be like, look at how our celebrities dressed. It was psychotic. That's better. I'm into that. I think people, if they want to like wear the most psycho clothing for their brand so that people will talk about it, so that they'll get more likes, I'm in favor of it. Is my honest thought. I'm not the type of person, and I don't think it's necessarily valuable to be pretentious about a thing and say like, it does not follow the rules. It's not dignified. As long as it's not like...
And it's not like a high or low culture thing, I feel, either. Because, like, Shia Pirelli, I think, got popping off in the mainstream mostly by, getting their clothes on red carpet and, celebrities, right? Like, and that prints money these days. They've got much better distribution, and there's, like, a huge audience for what was like, a legacy brand until, like, they started doing the celebrity stuff.
I mean, I bet there's just, like, I was just going to say, like, the PR teams behind these celebrities, there's, like, got to be a pipeline where whoever has the best PR is getting the weirdest outfits and they're becoming famous. Because all this stuff, like these clothes don't just show up. They're not, Hailey Bieber didn't just wear that wife beater because she decided to. It's because her like handler has been begging her to wear this because an entire PR squad is like, please just put on that wife beater once so that we can take a picture of it. So there's
actually a really interesting story that I just heard. They're talking about it on the H3 podcast because, Ela from H3 has Teddy Fresh, that brand, and told this whole story about how Howie Mandel wore one of their pieces on the reality show he does, and he brought it to the show, and Heidi Klum was like, what is that?
It's Deal or No Deal. Deal or No Deal is the name.
There you go. And hit up like the stylist, and then Heidi Klum's going through the stylist, hitting up Howie Mandel, who's hitting up Ela, and then she's driving over to the studio to hand deliver this thing. Like it's a production getting these clothes onto these celebrities.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it is. I know. I've worked with her at agencies where they have PR components, and that's multiple people's jobs. Is just kind of this constant contact where a PR firm will represent different designers, and then those PR people have, all their contacts at the publications. They have all their contacts with the stylists, and it's just kind of like a rotating thing of getting these people in the showroom so you can show them the new garments. Getting these people, it's like, I know your person is going to go at this event, and I just want them to wear this one piece of jewelry, even though nobody's going to talk about it, so I can get a picture, and we can say that they wore this piece. So like there's a whole industry behind every horrendous outfit that we see at Coachella.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess with an exception, like Tyler, the creator, is obviously wearing his own clothing. So That's pretty straightforward.
And I know it's literally a point that's written about in articles that Timothy Chalamet dresses himself. Like, that's so notable that it has to be put in every article about him.
Well, one of the reasons that I asked the question about being over the top for the sake of over the top is because I feel like if I could make a big macro statement about the state of fashion at the moment, I think maximalism has sort of lost its place a little bit. I think that Rick Owens is really popular, and Jerry Lorenzo is really popular, and diffusion lines are popular, and I think minimalism has sort of gained a lot of traction, and in that sense, exactly right. So on one hand, I think people do things to be over the top for the brand, but on the other hand, as you would say, Christian, the bombastic maximalism of Alessandro Michele's Gucci is not really working. It's not working.
He left. So, they got rid of him.
Exactly. He'll never be a Gucci.
Yeah.
A poof.
I agree. I think I don't want to cut you off. I think that to some extent there's going to be a restrained period, and that could. I have a lot of theories. Restriction core. I mean, honestly, the video that I'm not publishing, I talked a little bit about this. There is actually a lot of studies about like luxury brands and their aesthetic dependent on economic cycles. And like during the recession, 2008, you saw a lot of luxury brands start producing a lot less logo mania stuff. And that's just kind of how it goes, because if you're rich, you don't want poor people to know. But
you don't want them to riot. You don't want them to storm into LVMH's headquarters in France because they raised the retirement age by 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that there is an industrial element to that in terms of like financing, right? Because what can happen with like maximalism is it becomes like more expensive to manufacture. If you're there doing embroidery, that's like somebody you like have to now pay, right? And as finances get tighter and these companies have to like, deal with inventory and deal with all those sort of things, they're tightening their drawstrings, which means that the designs have to get simpler, easier to manufacture. You can kind of sell something like that is kind of positioned to be more quiet in the sense that like you have a simpler pattern, right?
Yeah, it's derelict.
I don't even say derelict, because derelict requires like a distressor to get involved, right? Yeah. Like that's what I'm saying. Like it's less distressed because it's another step they would have to pay for, and it's in the best interest of like the brands to kind of rotate into, I feel like a production that is more restrained. That is, quote unquote, in the words of a Carrie employee, not for entertainment. So, I think that's generally like the kind of Marxist read on it. It's like these companies are trying to push us on it because they can't afford to make it maximal anymore.
It's interesting. We had Karsten Craning on a few weeks ago, and he made a point that I found really interesting. There you go. Meme Saint Laurent. Made an interesting point that a lot of brands, their success or lack of success can be directly attributed to how locked down and solid their supply chains are.
Yes. All this stuff. I mean, fundamentally, all this stuff is like, it's massive. And like, if you work in fashion or even like retail, of some other kind of consumer product, there's so much of the behind the scenes, the economics of it plays such more of a role than you might want. And I think at the end of the day, the types of designers who are liberated from that they're few and far between. I think that's also like part of why so many brands are kind of moving away from seasonal stuff. Because being seasonal ties you into this need to have the showrooms, to have the PR, to have this, to have the manufacturers over here, to have like a backup.
To tie it all,
tie it all together, my Alexa is going off because it's 9.
Oh god!
And I'm supposed to give my cat eye drops.
Oh,
that's the truth.
Poor kitty's eyes.
Can I ask the pod? Yeah. Everybody listening, watching, the aliens who get this transmission, a round of applause again for our beautiful guests today. Thank you guys so much. Honestly, I'm stoked to the max, especially because neither of you both are working in the technical world. You're both STEM babies. And to see that people are really passionate about this stuff and think about it in a, I don't know, a complex way is dope.
Yeah.
So thank you both. Honestly.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to talk and share my perspective.
Yes.
Yes. Thanks, folks, for listening to our hot takes.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Christian, thank you so much.
I'm glad we got rid of this.
Oh goodness. Okay.
I mean, like,
no, for real though. That was sick. That was super fun.
We'll
do it again. We'll do another one of these episodes someday. We'll make them a thing. We'll do them every once in a while.
Listen, I'll look at the metrics and decide.
We got to check the analytics. Of course.
I'm thrilled that I'm glad everybody showed up again. I'm sorry we were gone last week. Killian was like, he called me. He's like, I'm in a Tijuana prison. Yo necesito, and he's like, ayúdame. And I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying, but I had to go to Mexico to get him out.
Yeah, so. You knew a guy who knew a guy, and you were down there with some AKs that were definitely Russian. They were old and rusty, but you made it, and I appreciated that.
Should we sign off? I guess.
I think so. I think it's that time. Yeah, we did it. We made it.
I wonder what people would think of this one.
We'll see. Yeah, please, anybody. The Brandomizer. I promise the Brandomizer will be back next week.
Yeah,
we love the Brandomizer too.
We love the Brandomizer. We always want to do it, but I need to tell my Alexa to stop going off. And my Caroline's on home, and
all right.
Yeah.
We can't leave the kitty hanging. So thank you all. Thank you for joining us. We love you.
My name's Christian. You can find me at Brave New Wear on YouTube, and Christian Shabetta on Instagram.
And I'm Low Luxury on YouTube and Instagram. This has been The Bias Cut. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Peace.
See you soon.